The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
We are going to give a 1-month exemption on any autos coming through USMCA. Reciprocal tariffs will still go into effect on April 2nd.
More tariff tweaks, what Trump's exceptions mean for a wider trade war. And the vice president at the southern border tonight as major sanctuary city leaders plead their case in D.C. And then actions taken now by several states to combat rising grocery prices, the supply concerns, and their plan to ease the pain. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Gatton. Thank you for joining us. Right now, as we come on the air, a line of severe storms passing over the East Coast from North Carolina all the way to New York. 38 million Americans under severe weather alerts right now. 110 million still under high wind advisories with gale force winds over the plains. This as yesterday's storms are now blamed for killing at least two people in Mississippi. We're told one person was killed as a result of a downed power line and the other was killed when a tree fell on their car. The storms produced dust storms, blizzards, and strong winds causing wildfires. You get a sense of the damage as you take a look at the images right here. According to the National Weather Service, multiple tornadoes struck in Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma. And today, tens of thousands are left in the dark as you take a look right here at all the power outages. More than 450,000 people. They woke up this morning without power, but now still in Texas, 50,000 plus suffering from those outages. Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, Missouri, New York, and New Jersey all reeling from yesterday's storms. Meantime, in California, nearly 30,000 customers, they are without power. The weather is definitely wreaking havoc on air travel as well. According to FlightAware.com, more than 4,000 flights have been delayed and another 750 plus canceled altogether. Stay with us as we continue to track developments throughout the night. We'll have coverage for you both on air and online at thenationaldesk.com. President Trump standing by his hefty new tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico, despite warnings from companies like Target that they'll be forced to increase prices in a matter of days. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar reports from Washington on one industry that's getting some temporary relief.
A short-term lifeline for the auto industry. At the request of the big three automakers, Stellantis, Ford, and GM, President Trump now agrees to delay tariffs for 1 month for vehicles that comply with the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, so they are not at an economic disadvantage, as the White House puts it. But experts are quick to point out 1 month is hardly any time to reorient production lines. They're set to be hit by a separate round of reciprocal tariffs set to start as soon as April 2nd. Tuesday night, the president acknowledged his tariffs could cause, quote, a little disturbance, but the White House rejects economists' warnings they'll cause real economic pain for Americans.
I don't have a crystal ball, but what I can assure the American people is that this president and this administration is doing everything they can. The president is open to hearing about additional exemptions. He always has open dialogue, and he'll always do, what's right, what he believes is right for the American people.
The current round of tariffs comes from President Trump's accusations that Canada and Mexico enable America's fentanyl crisis, something Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been especially vocal to refute. Now, the two leaders spoke Wednesday morning, but it did not yield any agreements to settle fears that these allies are in for a full-blown trade war. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
We are now waiting to see if President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky can finally come to an agreement on a peace deal. In the meantime, Ukraine continues to fend off Russian attacks and will now have to do so without U.S. weapons or intelligence. CIA Director John Ratcliffe confirms that the U.S. has paused intelligence sharing and weapons shipments to Ukraine because President Trump questions Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's commitment to peace. Zelensky issued a statement in response saying that he does want peace.
So I think on the military front and the intelligence front, the pause that allowed that to happen, I think, will go away, and I think we'll work shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine as we have to push back on the aggression that's there, but to put the world in a better place for these peace negotiations to move forward.
Zelensky said the infamous Oval Office clash with President Trump and Vice President Vance was regrettable. He says Ukraine is ready to sign a rare earth minerals deal with a goal of a security guarantee to keep Russia from advancing. Vice President J.D. Vance is visiting the Texas-Mexico border today. He is joined by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. They plan to highlight what they describe as the incredible progress made by the administration in securing the border. Border crossings have fallen to their lowest levels since before 2020 in the first 6 weeks of President Trump's second term.
I've heard already from a number of the folks that I've talked to in Border Patrol that all we needed to do was empower these guys to do their job. Thank God they have done their job. We're thrilled that they've done it. And now we've seen, I think just in this area, border crossings go from about 1,500 a day to 30 a day. That's simply the President of the United States empowering these professionals to do what they do so well.
Meanwhile, in San Antonio, opening arguments started in a case against two men charged in connection with the deadliest human smuggling attempt in U.S. history. Felipe Orduna Torres and Armando Gonzalez Ortega are accused of taking part in what federal prosecutors called a sophisticated international human smuggling operation. Federal prosecutors say 53 people, including 6 kids, were found dead in the back of a sweltering tractor trailer in 2022. This trial is expected to go on for the next month. Other defendants in the case have pleaded guilty. The driver of the truck, Homera Zamorano, will be sentenced next month. New details. President Donald Trump's efforts to tackle government waste, fraud, and abuse remain a centerpiece of his agenda and a key point of criticism for his political opponents. Here's national correspondent Kayla Gaskins.
President Donald Trump's newly created Department of Government Efficiency.
DOGE. Perhaps you've heard of it.
Taking a prominent role in the first address of his second term to a joint session of Congress Tuesday evening, dedicating 8 minutes to DOGE's findings thus far.
$22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens.
Listing 19 examples of what he has classified as government waste, fraud, and abuse.
$8 million for making mice transgender. This is real.
Elon Musk, the controversial mastermind behind DOGE, in attendance for Tuesday's speech.
Thank you, Elon.
And the opposition's response following the speech, Democratic Senator from Michigan, Alyssa Slotkin, hitting back, criticizing DOGE and Elon Musk.
Is there anyone in America who is comfortable with him and his gang of 20-year-olds using their own computer servers to poke through your tax returns, your health information, and your bank accounts? We need a more efficient government. You want to cut waste? I'll help you do it. But change doesn't need to be chaotic or make us less safe.
Meanwhile, conservatives in the House and Senate doubling down on their support for DOGE, pressuring Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune against compromising with Democrats by agreeing to add any DOGE restrictions to a spending bill currently being worked on to avoid a government shutdown by March 14th. President Trump promising DOGE is just getting started.
Taking back a lot of that money. We got it just in time. This is just the beginning.
And Didi, the Supreme Court Wednesday ruling against the Trump administration and their request to freeze $2 billion worth of payments for USAID. The case now sent back down to the lower courts to sort out how and when those payments should be made.
And Kayla, some of President Trump's words from the speech last night are now being used against him in court cases involving DOGE. What did he say about that, and why does it matter legally?
This is a situation where word choice could really matter. One of the lawsuits filed regarding DOGE is based on the technicalities of the entity DOGE itself and Elon Musk's role in DOGE. So in his speech last night, Donald Trump gave Elon Musk a shout out. He said, quote, DOGE, perhaps you've heard of it, perhaps, which is headed by Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight. Lawyers seized on that shout out. The administration has been very careful about how they refer to Musk's role with DOGE, saying he is not an employee of the U.S. DOGE service and that he's a senior advisor to Trump as a White House employee. Now, if Musk is considered the head of DOGE as a non-federal worker, he's subject to a heavier burden of transparency, and that could work against the White House. Didi.
Live from Washington, D.C., Kelly Gaskins, thank you so much. Developing now, Los Angeles County suing Southern California Edison, claiming that the utilities equipment sparked January's Eaton fire. The fire destroyed more than 9,400 structures and killed 17 people in the Altadena area. The county is seeking to recover costs for fighting the fire and future recovery of assets for residents. The definitive cause of the fire remains under investigation. An urgent manhunt happening right now in the Pacific Northwest. Police searching for a murder suspect in Washington state after a postal office employee was shot and killed yesterday. Police believe the suspect and the victim know each other, but it's unclear if the gunman was an employee. The shooting happened Tuesday afternoon at a post office distribution center about 12 miles south of Seattle. Alaska state troopers are now working to rescue multiple skiers who may have been caught in an avalanche in the Alaska backcountry. It is unknown how many skiers are missing, but we do know the slide happened late last night about 40 miles south of Anchorage. New information right now, the Vatican says Pope Francis is still participating in the start of the Lenten season, albeit from the hospital. Doctors for the 88-year-old pontiff say he received a blessing this morning for Ash Wednesday. Pope Francis is now reportedly increasing his physical activity and workload. He's still getting supplemental oxygen and remains in stable condition. Coming up, sanctuary city demands now on Capitol Hill. The mayoral message to Congress and how it could impact your neighborhood. Plus, talking directly with Hamas, what the U.S. is now pushing for by taking out the middleman. And then flu complications turning deadly. The strong message for one father as his daughter fights for her life. A somber morning on Capitol Hill. Following the news, freshman Representative Sylvester Turner has died. Turner suffered a medical event in the halls, 70 years old. Also on Capitol Hill today, mayors from so-called sanctuary cities were grilled about their city's policies on undocumented migrants. While GOP lawmakers argue it makes their communities less safe, mayors say they do the opposite. Christine Frizzell has more.
As the Trump administration continues its crackdown on criminal migrants, a crackdown as well on American cities Republicans say are standing in the way, like Chicago, where the recent murder of a 63-year-old man shocked his community.
His arms tied with a duct tape, legs with the extension cord.
Both suspects, undocumented migrants. One had been arrested just weeks before for trying to lure a 13-year-old girl to his car.
ICE lodged a detainer against the criminal alien but Chicago authorities released him back onto the street.
It's an incident Republicans say would not have happened if not for Chicago's sanctuary policies, which prohibit local law enforcement from communicating with immigration and customs enforcement.
The safest thing to do is to say, ICE, we got him in custody. Come here, we're releasing. We held him 345 days. We can't hold him a second longer. We can't wait for you to come inside the building. We got to let him go, so you have to arrest him in the parking lot.
Sanctuary laws are in place in several cities and states around the country, which became top locations for buses filled with migrants to be brought.
Do you solemnly swear?
The mayors of the four largest ones, Boston, Chicago, Denver, and New York, defending their city's laws that require them to care for the migrants.
The question Denver faced was, what will you do with a mom and two kids dropped on the streets of our city with no warm clothes, no food, and no place to stay?
All four mayors touting massive decreases in homicides and violent crime in their cities and say the laws are a contributing factor.
Any actions that amplify fears of deportations make Chicago more dangerous. Those fears cause witnesses and victims to avoid cooperating with police.
Both GOP lawmakers and President Trump have threatened to withhold federal funding from these cities, and the Justice Department has already issued a memo saying they plan to pause funding. But these cities could be far more hurt if the Transportation Department follows through on its threat. It would block funding from highways, roads, bridges, airports, and all public transit systems. I'm Christine Frizzell for the National News Desk.
A number of states are now considering shrinking the imposed sales tax on groceries following consumer complaints. The governor of Arkansas introduced a proposal Tuesday to eliminate the remaining state sales tax on groceries, while lawmakers in Alabama, Tennessee, and Mississippi are calling for tax reductions. These efforts to curb grocery taxes come as many states face budget concerns due to cuts made by the federal government. Developing now, the United States Embassy in Somalia is warning they have credible information of potentially imminent terror attacks in the country, including at the Mogadishu Aden Ade International Airport. A level 4 travel advisory, do not travel, has now been issued in response. A man suspected of leading the suicide bombing plot at the Kabul airport during the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan was in federal court today. Mohammed Sharifullah is now facing charges of providing material support to a foreign terrorist organization, resulting in death. 13 U.S. service members and about 170 Afghans were killed in the attack. President Trump announced Sharifullah's extradition last night in his address to Congress.
The president was emotional, but he was thrilled to be able to call those families and say this monster is going to be brought to justice.
The United States is now engaging directly with Hamas in an attempt to get the remaining 59 hostages out of Gaza and possibly end the war entirely. This is the first time the U.S. has spoken one-on-one with the organization that has been on the terror list since 1997. But tonight, President Trump says on his Truth Social in a message to Hamas, give all of the hostages back or he will give Israel everything they need to finish the job. Once again, he says there will be hell to pay if the hostages, both alive and dead, are not released. He also called on Hamas leadership to leave Gaza, something they have refused to accept in all other negotiations to this point. One of the most contagious viruses in the world is spreading across the U.S. right now. Measles cases have been confirmed in 10 states so far, the bulk of those coming from that West Texas outbreak. Now we're learning of a South Florida high school student who has contracted the virus. Health officials are now setting up a vaccination drive on the campus of Miami Palmetto Senior High. County health officials sent an email to parents last night. According to the CDC, about 20% of the reported cases have sent patients to the hospital. Most of the people infected have been children. The virus is airborne and spreads easily when an infected person breathes and sneezes or coughs. Wild Coast Raw is recalling cat food over possible bird flu contamination. It's recalling some 16-ounce and 24-ounce frozen, boneless, free-range chicken formula raw pet food for cats. It was sold in Oregon and Washington. The company issued a similar recall last month after 2 cats got severe cases of bird flu and died. If you come into contact with this product, wash your hands and sanitize all contact surfaces. Side effects from weight loss drugs range from mild to the extreme, but one side effect is coming into focus. Vision loss is now being associated with the drugs that have become so common. Medical reporter Liz Bonus has more.
Those taking these medications under brand names such as Ozempic and Wegovy often lose
about 40 pounds from semaglutide.
Amber Maley, a nurse practitioner here at Kentucky's Derma Lounge, not only lost weight on the medication, she now counsels patients on managing diet and exercise levels, as well as the side effects of the drugs as part of a comprehensive weight management program, one she's talked about recently.
Over the last couple of years, we definitely have learned that there could be a potential link to maybe some vision changes or blurred vision.
Those changes are rare in some patients. According to a recent study, however, they appear to be associated with a condition called non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy, or NION.
And it's a type of nerve damage or nerve injury, we would put it in that category, and it's linked to blood flow changes.
Dr. Jennifer Mercado, an optometrist at Kentucky's Vision One, says these blood flow changes can lead to a partial vision loss in one eye or both that likely is permanent.
And it's all of a sudden change in vision.
These same kind of blood flow changes, Dr. Mercado told me, are linked to many conditions.
In the general population, risk factors would be smoking, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol.
So here's what to know. If you notice any vision change on any medication, see an eye doctor right away. There does not appear to be a treatment for this type of vision loss, but waiting may make it worse.
Classroom chaos. Parents in Washington state outraged over concerns state lawmakers are trying to take away their parental rights. We'll be right back. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. From a push for stronger gun rights in Florida to Washington state parents trying to protect their parental bill of rights. We're taking the pulse of America, but we start with sick with the flu.
She jumps up out of bed and runs towards the bathroom door. And next thing I know, I hear a thud. So I grab my flashlight on my phone and I look over and she's laying on the ground.
Her dad, Brad, says they rushed her to a hospital in Chillicothe.
They had to do 3 rounds of CPR on her before they finally got a pulse.
Then a crew life-flighted her to Nationwide Children's Hospital.
They came in and told us that she had massive amounts of brain injuries. She'll never be able to walk again.
I feel this would make students safer. Students could rely on themselves for protection as opposed to someone else.
State Senator Randy Fine, a Republican from Melbourne Beach, says allowing faculty members and students to lawfully carry guns on college campuses and universities is an important step. Senator Fine introduced this bill that would authorize persons to carry firearms on the property of any college or university in Florida.
Here's what people need to understand. There is no magical force field that keeps guns off of our college and university campuses. Those who don't care about the law are already bringing guns onto college campuses. This simply allows those who follow the law to do the same.
Should guns be allowed on campus?
I think so, if they're in the hands of the right people.
This is a statement saying, we're watching you, and parents are not happy with you playing around with our parental rights.
Brian Haywood with Let's Go Washington is the original author of the Parents' Bill of Rights. He argues it's not only the law, but it also withstood a test in court and does not need to be altered.
I believe, and in our original bill, we state very clearly, parents are the primary stakeholders in raising of children.
The Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction did try to clean up some of the ambiguous language, but it's still not enough for the Washington Education Association and others who want this new bill to pass.
That essentially guts 2081. In fact, makes some things worse than they were before. To keep, and primarily it's keeping secrets from parents.
Coming up next here, meet the cow who made a beeline to freedom. The story you gotta hear at the rodeo attraction taking over the streets of Houston. That's coming up next. Videos there, right there, little chaotic. You can understand why. Just so happened to be the first day of the Houston rodeo. Police say that the street leads away from the rodeo grounds. As you can see, as we play the video in full, a man chasing the cow gets close enough to reach the rope. However, he then trips on a traffic cone, falls to the ground. Eventually, the cow was corralled and returned safely to the rodeo grounds. What a show. Glad I got caught. That's going to do it for this edition of the National News Desk. We invite you to join us again this evening for more coverage on America's top stories. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Thanks for watching.